Welcome to your D122W1 to our Jiffy Box project. And hopefully you took the quiz and you looked at the video of the Jiffy Box overview and compared the Bisquick and the old version and looked at some of the projects. And we'll do that again. And again, in class, we would probably take a lot of time doing that and critiquing and doing things like that. It's a little harder to do it online, but that's why I took some time here. And I want to make sure these videos go slow. I don't want to rush through this because I want this to be a nice project for you. And also we're doing it with Figma for the first time instead of Illustrator and Photoshop. So it'll be a little bit different. And I want to make sure you have the right tools and you feel comfortable working on it. So what you're going to do, other than going to documents and resources, let me just go there first and look at some of those handouts. Now, the handouts a lot of times are samples. Now, there's the original Jiffy Box, which again, we're going to try to update this, meaning we're going to try to refresh it and keep some of the look of the original, meaning the colors, kind of the retro kind of look, but really improve the layout of it. So that's our intent with this, and to modernize it a little bit so it's a little more like the Bisquick box. So we want to Bisquick-ize the Jiffy Box. We don't want to lose its character or what makes it look like Jiffy and make it look like a completely different box, but we also want to just modernize it. So we want to modernize this to look a little more like this. That's what we want to do without copying it, but also taking some of the things that benefit this packaging and make it look nice on a shelf. So that's what we're going to do. And again, I even showed some older versions here, these PDFs. I put these together in one document. You might have to zoom out on these. Now, this one uses America's favorite in some cases. Let me zoom here so we break the right one here. Here's the first one, quality and value. Now this uses all the original stuff. Quality and value, Jiffy, all baking mix. And here's the weight down here. It doesn't really use anything else. It doesn't use compare and save. Very simple. We could put some kind of banner or something down here, but takes kind of a similar typeface that they were using here, similar kind of flare serif a little bit, and kind of puts it on a curve a little bit, puts some white stroke around it, puts a little bevel and emboss, puts some shadow, and still uses the same color, except, and also gets a little movement here with this little swooshy kind of curve here, and this swooshy kind of curve on the text. Now in Figma, it's a little harder to do this swooshy kind of warping with text. So we'll try to stay away from that as much as we can. There are some plugins where we can do some stuff like that, but not as good as we could do in Illustrator. That's the one thing we can't do really well in Figma is like make arched text and warp text very well. But anyway, that's one sample. And here's one that uses pop dots. Again, still a similar typeface, not exact. It's a little more of a serif. The flares are a little more prominent. It uses pop dots. It uses a white background like the original. It's kind of a subtle background with just one item shown here instead of the whole, random cut and paste version that the other one had. And it still says compare and save down here. We could always include compare and save, and it uses America's favorite, which is something they've incorporated into the new version. If you do any research on Jiffy, you'll see they have updated the packaging. They haven't done it this much, but they've updated a little bit, so it doesn't look as bad as this anymore. It certainly doesn't look that bad. So they've improved it a little bit. Even since we started working on samples of these, they've improved it. So we're just trying to do the same thing. So I don't want you to copy anything else necessarily, but just get kind of your own vision. Look for something that has the integrity of the original, but just modernizes a little bit. Here's one that went a little bit different. It still used a kind of a retro look, but went with a scripty typeface. And it used the scripty typeface here and down here, and then kept kind of the copper plate of the other one, kind of a thinner version of the copper plate of the other one. It still uses kind of a light background, but it has a little bit of blue in it and some glows and stuff like that. So it's a nice kind of moving layout. It's a little more pleasant looking than the original. And it's a little more Bisquick looking as well, without being so bold. This has really bold yellow colors. We don't want to do that because the Jiffy Box didn't have really bold colors, so we don't want to make it look like Bisquick. We want to still have it look like Jiffy and feel like Jiffy. Just improve it, make it look a little more modern so it belongs on the shelf with some of the other packaging. This is one, this just has a white kind of border around it based on the sizing, but this used pancakes. It uses strawberries and blueberries just like the Bisquick does to bring in some color, to repeat that color a little bit. And then the pancakes kind of bring out the warmth. There's some color here that brings out some warmth. Gradient looks like a little gradient in there to create some warmth. And there's some warmth up at the top with some yellow at the top. So it has more of a retro kind of feel and colors. Lighter color at the top, kind of like a sunrise, a little darker at the bottom We always want to kind of go from nature a little bit. Uses a script font in here, has kind of an old style kind of look here, kind of a 50s retro. So it kind of works, and it doesn't look a whole lot different than the original type. A little bit better, I think. So there's lots of options we can go with, and the other fonts are just really plain, and they kind of back it up a little bit. And here it's using a light blue and a dark blue a little bit, so that's not a bad layout either. And this sits in the yellow a little bit. It's kind of a little archway on the top. Again, we might have a little problem with arches, but we can try it in Figma. And that's a version. Let's see if there's any others here. Here's one other one. I'll zoom out a little bit. This one uses, again, a similar typeface. You could look for something that's similar. Look in the sans serifs for something similar. This has pancakes with some blueberries in there, and it has a kind of a red Compare and Save badge on the bottom, a starburst, but it's cut off. And there's blue at the bottom to create kind of a border. And it has a little bit of an arch at the top. So there's no arch text here, so we could do something like this very easy. In Figma, we could use starbursts like we did on the Ultra Clean. All kinds of stuff we could do here. Has nice warmth in the middle here, and Jiffy really pops from this kind of upper third area of it. So all of these are kind of nice examples. They all certainly improve on that. It's not going to be hard to improve on that. The idea is clean it up and get one image and get a real nice typeface that's similar to that but really pops, and then use some of those techniques that we used on the Ultra Clean, not quite as much, but some of these techniques a little bit, and have it kind of fit in there. So that's what we're going to do, and I want you to look at those first. So I think that's all you have to look at in here, other than taking that quiz that has another overview. Some of this I mentioned in that first overview from a couple years back, and if you watched any of the other videos, you'll see what happens there with Illustrator. But we're going to start with Figma. So what you're going to do, let me close these up for now, and I did put a version of the logo in your file. So you're going to go to Coursework, and you're going to go down to Unit 6. I put this in Unit 6. I figured by the time I had most of the videos done, we'll be in Unit 6, even though you may start this in Unit 5. And you're going to click on this. This is the shared link in Figma, so I'm sharing that to you. So you can click on here. If not, you could go in here and click on the shared link in here, and it'll come up as view only. And I'll just have the basic text in there. That's what you're going to work with. It's already to size. It's already to the right resolution. I even have an original logo in here so you could look at for reference and even match colors. But you don't even have to match the colors, because these colors are the original colors, and I'll show you that in a minute. But before you do that, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go on the name here, because it says view only, and you're going to duplicate to your draft so it goes into your account. Then you're going to open at the bottom and open it up. And if you have another tab open for Figma, you could close it and then put your name on it. So just double click here and highlight over last F and copy and put your last name, first initial, and then hit enter, and it's part of your drafts. And again, what you're going to see over here, I have Jiffy, all-purpose baking mix, America's favorite, I have the weight, and I have even a background box. So if you need to color that, I wouldn't worry too much about coloring it here. We could do some of that in Photo P, but there is a background box here. I even locked it just so you wouldn't accidentally click on it. So you're not going to be coloring the frame, you're going to be coloring a box. And once we get into Photo P, you'll have that. Now this logo is not on the frame, so it's kind of off to the side. So in Figma, when you don't have something on the frame, it goes above the frame, so it's over there. And you could lock it or not lock it. Now, a couple things I want to show you before we get started. So we're going to take our time with this. Is this Jiffy here, that's just in a basic default font. The color of it, if you go down to fill, that color 0077BC, if you click on that, and click in there, and there's the RGB 0119 188. That color is the official color, at least that I found on their website. So we're using the official, at least the RGB or web color of that. So that's a color, so don't change that. Use that color, and they should be down here in your document colors. Same thing goes for America's favorite. If you go down to color, that's the color we're going to use, ED1C24. That's a hex number, and it's also the same as RGB 237, 28, and 36. And we could also find a CMYK and Pantone colors that match pretty close to that as well. They probably start with Pantone and then work to this, but we're working with the RGB and the hex colors here. Again, hex and RGB, they're the same color, they're just displayed in a different way. Instead of, there could be a total of 9 numbers here, there's always 6 here. That's the only benefit, and there's letters in there instead of numbers. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with. We have all the text, and we're gonna kind of start with Jiffy first, and then we'll build up a little bit of structure in the background. It doesn't have to be anything really crazy. Then we're gonna take this into Photo P and then put our products in there, meaning pancakes, biscuits, whatever you want to put in there. But we're going to kind of create a text layout first and get it kind of set up and then take it into Photo P. So that's what we're going to plan on doing. So before we do anything yet, a couple other things I want to mention. When you go into here, there's something called plugins. Now I have a bunch here, but I would like you to go find more plugins, because for what we're doing, some of the plugins that will help us. And again, let me go here. Plugins. I have some here, but there's one called Really Flattened Vectors. That'll take away like overlaps when we turn text into outline. So there's one called Really Flattened Vectors. So you could go to find more plugins and just type in Really Flattened Vectors and then just run it and just add it to your plugins. You don't have to run it on anything yet, but we're going to use that. There's also another one called SkewDat, and that helps us skew type. In our Ultra Clean, we had to do the skewing in Photo P, but we could do it with SkewDat, and it actually works really nice. So we also have Warp It, which we could use. And that's if we want to arch some text. It doesn't work really well, but that's probably the best one. So Warp It, SkewDat, and Really Flattened Vectors are pretty good plugins to use. Now there's also one called Vectorized Bitmap Trace Image. That's from Photo P that actually traces bitmap images into vector. Now at some point we may need that. We don't need it yet. So again, Really Flattened Vectors, add that plugin. SkewDat makes skewing really easy, which we can't do in Figma naturally. And then also Warp It is another tool you can use. So those 3 plugins and any others we can add. It's really quick to add them. You just go find them and you just search them and they just go in there. They're free. You're not going to pay for anything. And I just wanted to mention that. Really Flattened Vectors, SkewDat, and Warp It are good plugins to have in there in your account. So what you're going to do next is we're going to try to match something close to that or something different, whatever you want. I even have a note in here. Oh, my note went away. I put a note in here I put a note originally, but I guess that's only on my account, of a couple fonts. I'll have to look at it again, but I wrote down a couple fonts. I put a note in here, but I guess the note doesn't stay. The comment doesn't stay in here once you bring it into your account, but I wrote down some typefaces, but I'll try to find them anyway. So what do I mean by that? It means we're going to look at some typefaces, and Google Fonts has a ton of typefaces. So what we're going to do here, and you can make copies of this and try different ones. I could just, hold Option or Alt and move that over here, and we're going to try one. Remember, to make it bigger, use your Scale tool under the arrow and just grab in the middle of it and just make it bigger. That way you could just see what it looks like. You could make another one here. We could try different things. So first, I'm going to look at any serif fonts. That's kind of a flare serif, meaning it kind of flares out. It's more like a sans serif, but it does have some flares there. So we can look at serif fonts. Now, to be honest, I looked through a lot of them, didn't find many I liked, but let's just see if we find maybe one serif, maybe a couple sans serifs, and then we could look through decorative and script. So there's a lot of things to look through here, and I don't want to drive you crazy looking through here, but I want to show you how to use this. So I'm going to look at serif first. So I'm going to go to Google Fonts. By the way, let me just do that. Open up a tab, just go to Google Fonts. It's really easy to get to. Google Fonts. And if it says About, just click right on Google Fonts. That's all you need. You could close up this thing over here. And you want to search in certain categories. So I'm going to just look at serif first. Now there's going to be a lot of serifs we're not going to want. And what would be easy is just to type Jiffy up here, right off the bat. Now you could do it in all caps. You could even do it in all caps and regular. Maybe that'll help. Maybe you could see it 2 ways. And you can make it a little bit bigger without it breaking lines, I guess. And then we'll kind of look through here. And these are serifs. So you're going to see a lot of very basic serifs. Now keep in mind, you might make it very bold. So you want to look at a typeface that might look good in a very bold kind of font. And, for example, you might go Laura, oh, I like that. And then go down here and then say, oh, I'd really like to have that in that font. Now, I don't know if that's doing what the other one does, so that wouldn't be a choice that I have. I just hit the back button there. So I'm just going to move down here and see if there's anything kind of that catches my eye, that has a little bit of maybe a retro look or anything like that. Nothing too angly. Like I said, I don't know if I found a lot. Now here's a nice one. That's kind of a nice font. It only has one style though, so it's not any bolder than that. I'd want something really nice and bold. So I'm going to keep looking here. That's okay, but it has some fine lines, although that doesn't look bad. It has some very fine lines in there, so I don't know if I want a lot of fine lines like a modern typeface. So I'm just going to look through here. I like the J. Look at the different letters. Look at the way the F's go together. Lots of different things. Like I said, I don't know if I found a lot of nice serif fonts. That's kind of neat. That has a retro kind of look to it, except it's a little too distinctive. The F's are a little hard to read with those little things in there. I did not pick that one, but that may be something to work with. Maybe you like it in all caps. It has a little curl there. That may be something. You might want to write it down. So then write it down, Ultra. You might want to try it. That was not one I picked, but hey, if you use that and you worked with it, go for it. I'm not going to tell you not to try it. That's a nice one. I don't like the J as much. I like a little more of a curly J. So, that's not bad. That has a nice big bold kind of look to it. And it's only in caps. This one has a little weird kind of Suez isn't bad, although I don't like the J cut off like that. So, like I said, I went through a lot of these, and I don't know if I found anything in serif that I really gravitated to, but go through them. So anyway, go through them, and if you find something, let's whatever you find. Let's say, let me just find one here, let's say you wanted Holtwood. If you just wanted to try one in Holtwood, go here, get off the scale tool, go to the move tool, go down, and where it says enter, type Holt, and there's Holtwood, and there it is. And if you need to make it smaller, you could use the point size. You could go right here and make it smaller, or you could use the scale tool. Keep in mind, when you use the scale tool, it doesn't show you the typeface characteristics over here. So there's one, that's Holtwood. I'll copy this again, and I'll try a different one. Now, like I said, I didn't find a whole lot of serifs that I liked. I'm scrolling down here, looking for anything that might catch my eye, and keep doing that. Look for something that catches your eye, and then go in here and check for something really bold that might work. I don't think you're going to want to use any right out here, but you may go in and find something really bold that's a nice looking font. That's not, Stoke isn't looking bad. You may find some here. I think I went through all of them and I didn't find any. Now, by the way, I just want to point out, as I'm recording a video here, I'm looking at 292 of 1,491, 1,500 fonts. So, I'm not going to record a video looking at every single font. So there's 300 to go through there. So go through those. Now let's try another. Let's try sans serif. I'm going to go through sans serif. Now, a lot of these are going to be very plain looking, but we may find something that have some nice character. And I'm just going to go down here and just look for anything that kind of catches my eye. That's not bad. That's Anton. It's still plain, but there's nothing wrong with using something plain. You could add a lot of effects to it. You could do something like that. I'm looking for something that has a little more character. I don't remember if I found anything in the sans serifs. I might have went to the display and the scripts to find something. That's not bad. Secular 1. That's not bad. That has a neat looking J there. That's just very plain. But check through these too. Rubik Mono 1. I don't like that J. That's not bad. Actually, Pt1 isn't bad. That has a nice kind of look. Kind of a little playful kind of look, either in the upper and lower case or that. That's not bad. So maybe Pt1 is one you want to do. Let me go here and put this in Pt1, if they have it. And most of the time you're going to see it here, Pt1. It's kind of a nice font. You could bring it closer together. You could go down here to the letter spacing, bring it a little closer. You could try it in all caps. That's kind of a neat looking font. Even maybe do something where you connect the I to the F or something. You could make the J bigger. So don't think that, it looks weird with the Y down here. You could separate this and make a bigger J, and have a J that lines up here and goes all the way down where the Y is. You could do something like this. I just want to point this out. You could make a copy here and then just leave the J like that, and then go in here, double click in here, delete the J, and put them together. And actually that would be easier. That way you don't have to highlight one and make it bigger. That way you could go here, go on the scale tool, and just scale up the J a little bit, and then you could kind of work on something that, maybe the J looks cool lined up with all the other letters, like that. Maybe it doesn't need to be so big, like that. Maybe you're moving it down. Maybe you want it as tall as all the uppercase letters, and it just has kind of that nook there where you could put America's favorite or something like that. So that's something you can do as well. So that's Pt1, and let me keep looking at sans serif fonts for now. I'll work my way down. That has some nice curves to it. Vega has some nice little curves to it. And again, it only has one style, so I'd probably want something bolder than that. And I'll keep looking. And again, we have a ton here. So, I could spend another 10, 15 minutes on video scrolling. So I'm just there's Candel. That's a nice looking one. That's not a bad looking one. Whatever you find. I don't know why they have a scripty one there. I wouldn't use all the scripty caps, and I don't know if I'd use those letters. They look too curly. But, go through all the sans serifs. See if you find anything that looks like the original a little bit, that has some of the characteristics, that has kind of the feel of the original font, of this one over here. Maybe you'll find something that kind of looks like that. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. And remember, you're not seeing the real bold ones here. That has a playful, rock and roll one has kind of a playful look to it a little bit. This one is nice. Mouse Memoirs has a nice kind of look to it. That would be a good one to check out, Mouse Memoirs. Just based on the lowercase, that has a nice kind of playful look to it, particularly in the upper lowercase. Mouse Memoirs is a nice one. That's pretty much that we've seen before. That looks like Broadway a little bit, so I don't think we would use that. That's kind of not the look that we're looking for Jiffy. This has a neat look, Jiffy 1. Actually, this is one of the ones I use. So Wendy 1 is one of the ones that I used originally, or not one of the ones, but one of the ones I marked down. So Wendy 1. So here's another one over here, and I think I messed with the J. So I could copy this, and I'll copy the J, and I'm holding down my Alt key or my Option key, and I'll change this. Now, if it's not showing up over here, remember, change it to Move, and go down and change the font to Wendy 1. Wendy 1. And that has a cool look to it, I think. It's kind of a playful look. And then I'll go to this one. And there's ways we could copy properties and paste properties, but I'll just go to the drop down and type in Wendy 1. And that has a neat look too. And if you didn't like it, we could change the vectors. If you didn't like the way it got real fat there, you can actually change the vectors and kind of bring it in. You could modify any of these vectors, once we convert them to outline. So you don't have to be locked into exactly what it looks like. So if you'd want to change that somehow, if you'd want to just make it straight and not even have a serif there, or just have it angle in, you could do that. You could do anything you want. We could change all the anchor points in here if you want. That's the whole idea. And that's even better, because then you're making it your own. You're not just using a Google font. You're modifying it, making it your own. So that's what you want to do. So Wendy 1 is a good one. I'll keep going down, see if there was any more serifs that I looked at. Lots of playful things that you might see nice, bold kind of looks of. And again, there's a ton of sans serif fonts as well. That looks a little too code-ish. I think it even says code in there. Rum Raisin, actually, that's one I use too. It only has one style. It's not quite as bold as I like, but it has a nice playful look. Has a nice kind of look there. Rum Raisin was one I had written down, so Rum Raisin's nice. That's a good one that I'd suggest. You could use my suggestions. Engelbert looks nice. Lots of things you might see here, and certainly you might see ones that I don't even see. Seymour 1 isn't bad. You could even make it narrower and do something with it. I think that's too blocky, but you could do something with that. The J looks a little cut off, but you could change it. Put a circle on the end of the J and make your own custom J. You could certainly do that. So lots of things you could do here. Don't get too caught up into things like that. That looks really weird. And don't be locked into the way it looks exactly. Think, oh, I could change it and do this or do that. And I'll show you how to do some of that. I'll even use that Wendy 1. So I'll go down here, look for any more. Again, there's tons. You could spend all day looking through these and finding something, but let me go back to the top. Oh, this goes to the top. There's an arrow here. That's awesome. And I'm going to go look at, now this is where you're going to see a ton. You could look at display and handwriting, and then you'll get a ton of ideas. So in here, I'm going to go down. That looks too rough looking, too blocky. You're going to see a lot of things. You'll find some nice scripty ones. Some might be too hard to read. That looks too hard to read. April Fat Face, that doesn't look bad. You're going to find a lot of ones in here. Lolita 1, I like that. That has a nice look. Both the one in caps and lowercase is nice. That's a nice one. You're going to find tons of stuff, even if you just went in here. Alpha Slab 1 isn't bad. I think I had one in here. I forget what it was called now. Passion 1 isn't bad. That's not bad. Carter 1's not bad. You'll find a lot that have a nice look. Luckiest Guy isn't bad. Has a little bit of a playful look to it. You don't want to use something like Creepster. You don't want to use something like Black Ops 1. You don't need to make it be military looking. That looks too hard to read. You want it nice and clean. That looks a little too soft and doughy looking. That has a nice look. Bevan has a nice look to it. Looks like just a kind of a square serif, actually. These are a little too much, too hard to read. Racing Sands 1, that's not bad. That's not a bad looking font. Boogaloo isn't a bad font. It only has one style, so it may not be bold enough. Bulby 1 isn't bad. Again, don't use anything with little dots and circles and stuff in there. That's not bad. You could work with something like that. Not bad. Little hard to read. This looks a little bit like Broadway too much. I wouldn't go with something like that. Too generic looking. This isn't bad. Bold B1. Oh, we looked at that before. We mentioned Bold B1 before. Marhe, this is variable. Maybe if you went in here, you saw it's variable and look for something really bold, you might see some neat ideas. That's kind of neat. That's not a bad look. Marhe, write this stuff down so you remember what it was. Because you can see even when I did it, I didn't remember all of them that I did. I had to make notes of it. Gravitas isn't bad, but a little too many fine lines in there that I like. I think that might be hard to read at smaller sizes. That's a little too shaky. I don't know if we want a shaky look to it, but Atma, I think, was one that I liked. Actually, I did like Atma. And why I liked it, you might look at it and say, well, what's so good about that? Well, it has 5 styles. If you go in here, it has a bold look, and that's kind of a cool look. If you go here, and that's called Atma. If you go here to this one and you put it in Atma, it doesn't look too bad. And then if you make it nice and bold and you bring the letters together a little bit, you go here to the letter spacing, you bring it in, that's kind of a cool look. You could try it in all caps. Remember, it's very easy to do it in upper lowercase and then just go into the 3 dots down here and put it in all caps and see what that looks like. And that has a neat look. And then you could separate these, move them around, do anything you want. Make the J bigger. That's one Atma that isn't bad. And I'll just hit my back button here and look at some more. Slacky isn't bad. I didn't even look at any script ones yet, really. That has too many fine lines in it. That's not bad. It's a little too much cartoonish, I think. Ranchers isn't bad. Ribeye isn't bad. Spicy rice, that's a nice one. Nice little curly look there. Even road rage isn't bad. Spicy rice is a nice one. Let me just try spicy rice. I think that was another one that I looked at. So there's a lot of things you could find here. So let me put one in spicy rice. I'll take my original here and I'll make it bigger. I'll use my scale tool and again, get off the scale tool to the move tool and then put it back in the typeface that you want. I'll type in spicy. And that's kind of a neat look. So I have a lot of nice ideas here that I might want to narrow down a little bit. And, try different things out. Move them off to the side. Try just one. Go into this one and mess with the anchor points a little bit. If you see something you like about it, maybe you're going to make the J bigger. So do what I did and separate this. Make a copy and have one with the J and one with the iffy. Before you're messing with anchor points and all that, just separate the J from that. So a couple of these, I have the J separate from the iffy. Do something like that. Try them in all caps. Try them upper and lower. Kind of, that's going to be the main kind of identity of it, is replacing this. So this isn't a really great look. So all these probably look better than that. But if we do something that still has the look and feel of it without being so, I don't know, this one has that weird like point coming out. It just has like a copper plate, legal kind of look to it that just isn't very nice. But these have the same kind of feel. They're really heavy and kind of plain and blocky. Then we don't have a lot of curls going on except maybe this one. And you could always change that. You could always like round it off or something or cut it off. You could do that if you want. I'll show you that in the next video. But for the first video, all I want you to do is just kind of get a couple ideas. Get, 3, 4. I have 5 here, but get as many as you want. Instead of writing down notes, maybe just put them into that font and just keep making copies. And then what you could do is put them off to the side, and just work with one. I'll take this and put it over there. Now you could group these together. If you had a J and an iffy, let me just show you this for a second. You could group this, Command G or Control G. That way they're together as a group, and you could put it over there. And then they go outside your frame when you put them over there. So you could work with a couple different ones. Maybe I'll start with this one in my next video and just show you how to work with the anchor points a little bit, how to convert it to outlines, how to do some of that, even how to use that skew dat tool, and even if you want to skew it a little bit. So I'm going to do some of that in the next video. So we're going to really take our time with this. And, it's a design project, so we can't rush through it. This isn't like Ultra Clean where we rush through a lot of operations. We're going to take our time because this is your design. This could be something that's in your portfolio. So you want it to be yours. Don't just copy what I do. You could take some of the, you could take some suggestions of fonts, but you want to make your layout be your layout. So in part 2, we're going to start building our layout a little bit now that we have kind of some ideas for fonts that we might want to use. And keep in mind, since we're using very decorative fonts here, we could probably use something very plain to kind of support it. It doesn't mean we couldn't find a nice serif italic or something to use for America's Favorite or anything like that. We still may need to go back here and look for other fonts when it comes to supporting fonts, but we probably won't be using anything so decorative. Our main font is really going to be this one. So whatever we choose from that, that's really going to be our focal point. And then we'll find other fonts that work with it. Now, maybe not just a plain sans serif, but maybe something italic, maybe something that has a little script to it that doesn't compete with it. That's what we're going to look at doing in our next video. So, these videos are going to be long. They're going to take time. That's why I haven't rushed through them, and I didn't have them ready last week, because I'm going to be designing this and you're going to be designing it too. And hopefully you're going to be making your own decisions based on kind of what I do, but coming up with something that's very original for you. So that's what we're going to be doing next.